o'clock on Monday, the 13th of July. Pat Gonsalves here in beautiful downtown East York, Ontario, the east end of Toronto. Our track announcer's notebook with my co-host Stuart Nodell and producer with his assistant Noel, who's put together an awesome PowerPoint of some visuals of our special guest, Alex Dumas. And first of all, before we get to Alex, who is in Ventura, California this evening, we're going to send it to Stuart because, Stuart, we've got a little update on the CSBK series that we'd like to cover right off the top. I'm sure we've got a number of interested attendees on the show tonight who are anxious to hear the latest on CSBK. Stuart?
Yeah, thanks, Pat. Yeah, we got an email from Colin Fraser earlier today. So what I'll do is I'll just share my screen, and we just have a bit of some bullet points as to what's happening with the series and what their plan is for Calabogie coming up on July 25th. And I'll throw it back to you.
Well, Colin, of course, has been working very closely with Sandy Noche with Pro 6, who conducts many track days up at the Calabogie racetrack. He had some days last weekend where a number of the top superbike riders, you see it there this past weekend, Ben Young, Jordan Zoke, Jeff Williams, Sebastian Trombre, and Michael Leon among the superbike riders who got out there to run some laps on the track. So right now, the CSBK series consists of a single day of racing on Saturday, July 25th, in conjunction with Pro 6. There will be 2 superbike races. There will be a single Liqui Pro Sport Bike race, as well as amateur superbike and amateur lightweight sport bike. So those are the 4 classes they will run, and all classes will get practice qualifying as well as a race, with the exception of superbike that is going to have 2 races. So that is it in terms of officially scheduled rounds of the 2020 CSBK series. I know Colin is working very closely with Pro 6 and other people in the industry to try to have as many rounds as possible. Could they have an event at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park? Possible. The official event canceled last week. Could they possibly do something at Shannonville Motorsport Park? That's possible. And maybe even something in conjunction with SOAR at Grand Bend. Again, those are all speculative. What we do know is what you see on the screen there. Saturday, July 25th, 2 superbike races, single races, an amateur superbike, Liqui Pro Sport Bike, and amateur lightweight sport bike. No spectators allowed. Masks are mandatory for non-racers. There'll be no rollouts. It'll be strictly racing. And all the teams are going to be set up socially distanced in the hot pit lane. So given the situation that we're dealing with here in Ontario, I think Colin Fraser, Sandy Noche, and the rest of the team have done a great job in at least getting the series started. Hopefully they can get a few more rounds before the season wraps up. Unfortunate, we were looking to do some great things to celebrate 40 years of superbike racing, but that is not likely going to happen. But stay tuned. We'll continue to update you every Monday night on Track Announcer's Notebook. Okay, let's get to our special guest tonight, and that is Alex Dumas. And Alex, did I pronounce your last name correctly? Because I think when we spoke on the phone, I gave it the old English pronunciation of Dumas, pronouncing the S, but it is Dumas, correct?
Yes, it is correct.
Okay, so what do they call you in Moto America when you're out there racing on the public address system, or when they're calling you up to the top of the podium after a race win?
At the beginning, they were calling me Dumas, but then the more that the announcers know me, they learn how to say my name properly. Dumas. So it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Miguel Duhamel. Wish he had done that early when he was racing, and same with his dad Yvonne, because of course it came out Duhamel, and they never did get it right in the United States. So good of you that you straightened out those track announcers, because they can be pretty belligerent at times.
Yeah.
Alex, let's first of all go back to the early years. You started road racing very early, but what was the first motorcycle you ever got on, and how did that go?
My first ever motorcycle that I ride on was a DRZ 50, a little Suzuki 50. That was the first like motor bike that I've ever ride alone. And then we've always had like CRF 50 at home. And then after that, I stopped riding. I didn't like it. And then I came back when I was 8 years old. My dad bought me a KX 65, and we went to Deschambault, a local motocross track, a nice scent track. And I started back riding with a motocross. And then 2 years after that, I stepped up with 85. But we were just practicing for fun, just riding. And then when I was almost 11, when I was 10 and a half, my dad bought me a CBR 125. And then we went to, I forgot the name, but a small track in Quebec, road race track. And that's where I did my first ever road race track day.
Interesting. Um, what was the difference from you? Did getting on a road race bike on that Honda 125 feel different than the motocross bike? And I know you did some flat track and ice racing as well. Did you just feel more at home on the road race bike?
I remember my first track day was in the rain. I was the only one out there. I had like street tires and everything. And it felt really weird at the beginning because I've never like went fast riding something. I've never drove a car, never drove anything really fast. So it was really weird. It was really different, but I loved it in the rain. It was pretty cold too. And then we went back again, and my dad bought me a Moriwaki 250. It's pretty much like a pre-Moto 3 bike. So my second track day was on that thing, and it was way smaller too. So it was easier for me to get on and stop and start on it. So it was good. And yeah, I loved it. I loved it more than the motocross. That's for sure.
Okay, so while many young Canadian riders would really begin their road racing career here in this country, whether it's some regional racing and then maybe on to CSBK and some of the series that or the classes that they have, you looked to the United States with that Milwaukee and ran some of the Loudon Road Racing Series events. And very early in your career, you got hooked up with Jason Pridmore. How did that all come about?
So my dad used to race CSBK like in early 2010, 12 or whatever. And he was in the superbike class. And then he started to go racing CCS and WERA races in the US because he loved the track over here and he just loved it. So when he started to go riding the CCS races, that's when I started to get a little bit faster and quicker so I could go actually race and race the same way race weekends as he was. He was on his BMW S1000 and I had my Moriwaki. And I started doing, the first year I just did a couple races. And then the second year, we did the whole USGPRU championship. And that's when I met Jason Pridmore. He did one-on-one coaching with my dad and when I was 11. And then for 3 days at Jennings GP. And the last day, Jason took me out for a session. He just followed me for a session. And then that's when I started working with him. And then we went again at Jennings. And then instead of working only with my dad, he worked with me a lot too. And I started improving. I started to learn with him. And I loved it. And then he started to come to some of the races, like at Roebling Road, my first ever USGPRU race. And he was there. I won. I actually won that day. And it was really good. So I started working with Jason since almost pretty much the beginning of my whole road racing career thing.
And
So
so what were some of those early lessons as a young rider just getting into the sport? What were some of those key things that really stood out in your mind where like the light bulb goes on and all of a sudden it translates into faster lap times? What were some of the things that Jason was talking to you about?
actually, we're still talking about those kind of things today. We talk a lot about body position. It's really important. Also about RPM management. I really learned how to ride a motorcycle out of this, doing my downshifts early, and there was like a couple things we were not a lot of things, but just a couple specific things we worked on at the beginning, and it really helped out my riding. And the more simple I could make it, the faster I would go. Because I didn't want I wasn't like trying to go at the limit of the tires, and I didn't have that kind of feeling. So I would just pretty much go as quick as the bike would go for how I was riding. So the more simple we made it, the better and the faster I could go.
Okay. So from the early coaching by Jason Pridmore on the Milwaukee, you eventually move up to a KTM 390. You're 13 years of age. You can't really race in Canada or the US. So you go to Mexico to ride the KTM 390 Cup there. What was that experience like? Did your dad go with you? Did Jason accompany you? What was that first year racing in Mexico in the KTM Cup?
My dad was always coming to the races. There was one tryout at the beginning of the year, and I got accepted. And then there was 4 rounds, I think. Might be five, I don't remember. It was at least 4 rounds. And it was me, my dad, and my mechanic that was going there every time. And except being like at the beach in Mexico, I've never been like in the country. So it was really interesting because it's so different from where I'm from. So it was really different and weird a little bit. But I loved it. The people there were really nice with us. They helped out a lot. And there was a kid named Adolfo Delgado that was really fast around there. At the same time as running the KTM RC390 Cup there, he was racing in 600 in the pro class. And so he was pretty quick around those tight tracks. And I really learned out of him. And I was just getting better and better and faster the more like sessions I did over there. So it was really good.
Okay, so I think as in doing my research for tonight, you finished on the podium in all four of those races in Mexico. So now you're 14 years of age. You can race in the U.S. and you move to the KTM RC 390 Cup. And you had a pretty good first season. What was that like? And I assume many of those racetracks you ran on, you'd never raced on before. So it was a bit of a steep learning curve.
It was. I did a couple tracks. I can't remember which one I've already done before because of the CCS races. But there was a lot of tracks that I've never been to, at least half of the track. So it was a really steep learning curve, and there was fast guys in that class at the time. So at the beginning, I didn't expect anything much. So the first round we went to Road Atlanta, and in the first race I ended up third the first day. So that was really cool. I didn't expect anything, so it was really nice. I was so small at the time and so light that I would just gain like a second in the back straightaway.
All
I
right.
was a little bit slower, but it was still fun to battle with the guys in the front. And then I don't know why, but I was just not able to do a podium after that until we went to Pittsburgh. It was a new track for everybody because it was new on the calendar, and I won both races there. And then we went to New Jersey, and I won again both races. So I won 4 races in a row. So I was up there in the championship now, and heading into the last race, I was 1 point behind the first, and I was third in the championship. behind Corey Ventura and Benjamin Smith. They were equal for the lead in the championship. So it was cool to start the year not knowing what I'm gonna end up and be battling for the championship at the end. So unfortunately, I crashed in the first race at Barber, the last round, so I couldn't go for the championship. But it was still pretty cool to finish third in my first ever North America championship. So then, yeah, I really had fun that year and improved a lot.
Well, yeah, you won 4 of the last 6 races to cap out that first season. So you're taking that momentum into 2018, and you had an incredible season. What was the difference in 2018, other than you know these tracks now? But was it a case of getting more confident, getting stronger? What was the big difference in 2018 when you wrapped up the Moto America Junior Cup, I think at New Jersey, even before that final race at Barber, you already had the #1 plate wrapped up.
Yeah, heading into that 2018, I didn't road race the whole winter. I haven't ridden on the road race bike for like 5 months or something. So we went testing at Jennings with my old RC390 Cup bike because we didn't have the new KTM, the RCR, whatever they call it, the 390R. So we didn't have our bikes yet. So we just went out to practice, and the bike was already sold, the RC390. So I had to be careful with it at Jennings, but I just wanted to go as quick as I could, like the first days. I felt really comfortable with it, but unfortunately I tucked the front in like turn 1. I crashed it, but I like improved a lot for some reason over the winter. Something clicked or whatever. I was more aggressive and I could do what I wanted with the bike, and went pretty quick. So then a couple weeks after that, we went Jennings with the new bike that we just had. We were having trouble with getting a ECU. So it was me and my teammate at the time, Sean and Varsky. We both had the same bike, but only one ECU. So we would switch off ECU each track day session. So I didn't have a lot of time on it, but it was still pretty good. And I was doing pretty good. And then we went to the Barber test. And I remember Ashton Yates, they just, the new Ninja 400 just came out. So they bought one, and he had a completely like stuck 400, but it was unrestricted, but still bone stuck. And he was ripping around there. So I was like, man, it's going to be a hard championship this year, because I thought he was going to race 600, but he ended up riding the Junior Cup and the 600 Cup. So, yeah, it was, at first I thought I'm going to have a hard time to try to win the championship this year, because I knew with all the guys that were in the class, with the bike I had, I knew I could win some races and stuff. So we went out the first round. Ashton was really quick right off the bat, but I did a small gap in the race and was able to take the win the first day. And the second day on Sunday, it rained and I crashed in the warm up, so I couldn't race because I think the tip over sensor was something wrong with it or something. I couldn't start the bike for the race. So the championship started not too good because I only won one race and then didn't even do the second one. And then heading off into the other tracks, I was just winning and chipping away, even though they restricted my bike. So that year was really good for me. I just learned a lot on the bike. I had a couple of good battles sometimes, but I was doing pretty good. So I'm really happy about that year.
And if that name Yates sounds familiar, I believe that is Aaron Yates' young son. So he comes from pretty good pedigree, as you do, Alex.
Yep.
So you end up winning that championship during that season when you're winning all these races. Were John and Chris Ulrich of Team Hammer talking to you? Did you hear any rumors? Because those guys are notorious for finding very talented young riders and giving them the opportunity and the ride in the team to really take their talent to the next level. And that in fact is what's happened with you over the last couple of years. Did you have any early conversations with them?
Of course, during the 2018 season, Chris Ulrich came up to me and we started talking a little bit, and I knew that they were like big in the paddock. There was a couple teams, but they had like a really good team, and I knew that they were really good. So then we started talking, and then our plan was actually to do in 2019, do a second year with KTM in the Junior Cup. So we started talking with John and Chris, but then we told them that we're going to continue with KTM for 2019. And then I we went and did Barber at the end of the year in 2018, and then Motor America said that I wasn't even going to be able to do the Junior Cup because I finished twice in the top 5 or top 3 of the championship. So I had to move up in 600 or something. So then we called back John and Chris Ulrich to try to set up a meeting or something to see what we can do for 2019. And then I ended up signing with them for 2019 in the twins class, and then 2020 for maybe in the 600 class.
So let me go back to the end of that 2018 season. Chris and John Ulrich of Team Hammer had seen what you could do on the KTM, but you were moving up to a bigger bike. I believe you had a test at the end of the year on the Suzuki SV650. How did that go, and how much pressure did you feel auditioning really for that ride for 2019?
I tested their 600, their G6R 600
Oh, okay.
because yeah,
Not the SV. Yeah.
no, not the SV. The plan was to what what I wanted. Well, not what I wanted, but the plan was to ride the 600 for the 2019. But then it ended up with the SV program, and I felt it was better for me because I had like zero experience with the 600. So um, we went out with the SV, and they just built a really incredible bike last year. It was amazing. We had trouble with the first couple rounds with engine with the engine and stuff, but the more rounds the team had time to build the engine and make the bike better, the better it was, the faster it went, and just more easy the races were for me to win. So yeah, and then heading for the championship, I was battling with Michael Barnes at the beginning. He was quick. He had a really nice Ducati, actually, that was blowing up sometimes in the race, but still fast. And I had a really great time last year and racing with those guys.
Yeah. Last year, I think the season didn't start out phenomenally well. You had a little bit of a setback, I think hurt your hand, but then you came storming back. What did you learn last year in terms of in the sport where sometimes you've got to pick yourself up off the ground and sort of reset, which is actually what you did last year to win that Moto America Twins Championship?
Yeah, we did one test before the season. I've never ridden the SB before, so I try to go as quick as possible straight off the bat, and I really like how the bike handled and everything. So heading off in the first races, I thought I can do this. I can win everything. And then in the first practice, I blew up the engine that they had for me. So we had to run the stock engine for the rest of the first racing round. And it was actually a double header. So I lost a lot of points that weekend. I ended up 6th and 5th in both races. So that set me back a little bit. And then heading into VIR, they had that 2 days event that they did for the first time of the whole Moto America history. So we only had one practice, one qualifying, and one race, and that was it. So I wanted to go as quick as possible with the new engine they built me. So I wanted to get as quick as possible, and I crashed in the first practice. So I did only like half of the first practice. So then the first qualifying that they had, I tried to go also as quick as possible, and it rained the night before. So all like the paint on the side and the curbing were all wet and really slippery, but the track was dry, so it was good. And in the last corner at VIR, I touched the paint a little bit and I tugged the front, and my hand got stuck under my handlebar, and it grinded a little bit the tip of my little finger. But it was all right. I went to the hospital and they like cleaned it and took off the nail and everything. So I tried the same day I tried to race. I put a really big glove on because I couldn't put my hand in my gloves. It hurt so bad. But then I tried to do the warm up lap and I almost blew the first corner and it was just a mess. So it really hurt. So I didn't do that race. So then I got really like pushed back in the championship points. So we headed to Road America a month later, and I was able to podium there for the first time of ever in the twins. So it was good, but we were a little bit underpowered there compared to the Yamahas because there's so many straightaways, and the engine was pretty much like the first ever like build that they did. So it wasn't as good as it was at the end. And then we went to Utah. It wasn't I think I had the same engine, and we didn't really need power over there because it was so much like a flowy track and more like S's. So I got the win by like 10 seconds. So that's where it started like clicking and really doing good.
And you rode that all the way to the championship. So season wraps up at the end of last year. Now you've got to make a decision because I believe Team Hammer had signed you to a 2-year contract. You would think you would move up to super sport for this season, but at the end of it all, you elect to go with the stock 1000. How tough was that, the decision, and what were the things that you weighed back and forth as to whether it was going to be super sport or it was going to be stock 1000?
I remember when we first met John, Ulrich, and Chris. They asked me what I wanted to do, like where do I want to end up, or what do I want to do with my career. And I told them I want to be in Superbike. I want to race Superbike. That's my goal. Because all these kids, they want to go Moto3 and Moto2 and MotoGP. I want to race Superbikes because I think they're badass and that's what I want to do. So in my head, I've always wanted to go Superbike. And when I look back at all the guys that went to World Superbike or MotoGP, they all have been through the AMA Superbike Championship. Everybody that went over there, Ben Spies, Colin Edwards, Nicky Hayden, all those guys that were able to make it overseas, they all have been through the AMA Championship Superbike. So in my head, if I want to go to World Superbike or MotoGP, I know you can go the way like Moto2 and Moto3, Moto2 or overseas or something, but I've always think that going through the US and Superbike would be the better way for me. So then when it came up to ride the 600 or going to stock 1000, last year they changed the rule from 18 to 17 years old to enter the stock 1000. So it was an actual like choice that I could make. And I choose to go stock 1000 because I think it's better for me to learn to ride the 1000 faster than riding in the 600 class.
Okay. You mentioned Jason Pridmore earlier, but I know you've been doing a lot of work with Josh Hayes to part in his J-Force camp and so forth. Obviously, Jason Pridmore is a very talented rider and rider coach. He's done some great things. What has Josh Hayes added to your knowledge set and going through that J-Force camp?
I really like his camp. It was really good for me for especially training and fitness and stuff. He has a cool little like clay track in his backyard with so it's really cool to ride at his house. And I didn't really know Josh before last year, so I've always knew him but not really personally, so it was really cool to know him better. And I work more with Jason for like the riding part and like riding for a road race. But I really like to go train with Josh Hayes, Cam Peterson, Hunter Dunham, and all those guys. So I really liked it over there. And he lives in the ocean side, and it's really a nice little town. So it's really cool.
I pulled a quote from Josh Hayes, who was reviewing different riders and profiling them for the 2020 Moto America series. And here's what he says about Alex Dumas. I think this is going to be another good test for him, meaning moving up to stock 1000. I think there will be tracks and times where he will have flashes of brilliance, but I think it will take a bit of time for Alex to find consistency every weekend. So you've had 2 races in stock 1000 so far, I believe both at Road America. 7th in one, almost got on the podium in the last race a couple of weeks ago, battling for 3rd. You finished 4th. What has been the biggest adjustment you've had to make moving up to the 1000 from that SV650 Suzuki?
I've always been a smooth rider, like on the throttle and braking. I've never been the kind of guy that try to push the front and try to brake as deep as possible. So that helped me a lot on the big bike on the 1000 because you got to be smooth on them. There's so much power that you got to be careful sometimes. So Jason Pridmore, he helped me a lot to do the transition because on the small bikes I just carried a lot of momentum and corner speed, and you could go wide open like a second after hitting the apex. So it was more like a line and bike setup thing. Now it's really about like riding the bike, getting to know how to ride it, doing more like point and shoot kind of style of corners. It's really cool how to ride them. It's different, and I think it fits me more than what I used to do with the small bikes, more corner speed. I think I like more the big bike to ride it. And but one thing that I struggle a little bit with is the whole electronic stuff. You got to use it a lot to help you with your riding, like engine brake, traction control, anti-wheelie. Yeah, and I've been having a lot of hard time with it right now. I've had some pumping issues because of the traction control. So we're messing up with this. We're trying different kind of things. But I think one of my strongest point is the consistency that I have. I know the big bike is harder to be consistent and do always the same and be as like closer all the laps together. But I think not to rush my, not to try to go too fast for nothing and start crashing and everything. I think it's more a step-by-step thing that the speed is going to come the more I ride, the more I learn on it, and the more I raced against these guys. And I'm really happy about how the season is going right now. The first weekend I haven't ridden in 3 months because of the COVID. So it was good to get back on the bike. I did some pretty decent lap times for the first time with these guys. And then I improved the last round. And we just keep on improving every time I go on the bike. And every time we try to play with the setup of the bike, it just helps me a lot. So I think this year it's more a learning curve than trying to go for race wins. I know I would love to win some races by the end of the season. I think that's one of my biggest goals, to start doing podiums and winning races against those guys. And yeah, it's just going to be a long and big learning curve for me this year.
Well, that last race at Road America, I think you're only about half a second away from getting that first podium. This past weekend, you were at Road Atlanta, getting some time on 1000 at a track day at Road Atlanta. How did those 2 days of laps on the bike go for you? Because I know that's the next Moto America round is coming up in about 2.5 weeks on the July 31st, August 1st, 2nd weekend. How did the Road America sessions go, or the Road Atlanta sessions go?
They went pretty good. I've always been there riding with the small bikes, but it was different on the big bike. It felt tighter, it felt shorter, so I liked it a lot. It's going to be a challenging track for me, I think, but it's going to be fun. I love this place. It's one of my favorite tracks, so I think I'm going to do good there, and I'm really excited. The track day went pretty good. We were just running some old tires and just having some fun and messing up with the maps and stuff, the TC maps. So I had some fun there, and I think it's going to be a good Motor around there.
Okay. We're going to check in with Stuart and Odell. Stuart, you need to flip on your microphone. I think we may have a couple of questions or comments, and then I think before we have a further conversation with Alex, I think we're going to go through that little bit of a slideshow and maybe have Alex comment on some of the photos we're going to take a look at. Stuart?
Sure. Do you want me to do the screen share first, Pat?
No, let's take care of any questions or comments.
Okay.
Looks like we've got a couple there.
Yeah, we've got a couple. First of all, Steve Smart's joining us from Oakville, Ontario tonight. And he said he's into your golf tournament, Pat. So you could chalk Steve up for one of the foursomes, I guess, that you'll do at some point in the future.
Yeah, well, I know there are a lot of motorcycle racers and people in the industry who are pretty good golfers. In fact, this Friday, I'm trying to get out with Jordan Zoke for a round we've been planning for months now. And yeah, I know there are lots of golfers out there, and hopefully we can raise some funds for a worthy motorcycle related charity. And maybe we can even get Alex Dumas and Jason Pridmore up here to take part in that golf tournament. Okay, Stuart.
Yeah, we have one other comment from Jim Brown, and it looks like he, along with Jeff Williams, were out sorting out their new bike this past weekend. Most of the fast guys were there, according to Jim, and they had a great test session for the weekend. So I think Jeff's probably geared up and ready to go, and he might be a guy to watch out for with his experience in a short series. He could be a guy that is a front runner.
Yeah, well, we certainly hope that the Superbike CSBK Superbike Championship is not just the two races coming up July 25th at Calabogie, along with the other classes that'll be running. We'll try to update that next week, and apparently you've got to register online for the CSBK, and I think this Saturday, the 18th, is the deadline. If there are any racers out there or teams looking to officially register for those events. We got anything else there, Stuart? Otherwise, let's fire up our little PowerPoint with some great shots here of Alex Dumas.
Just one other quick thing for Alex before we go forward is with all of his experience on the Grand Prix style bikes and the smaller bikes, how has that taught him in his racecraft transitioning to the bigger bikes? Does he find, I find from my past experience racing the 125s and 250s, it really taught me to race against the guys with the bigger bikes because you're not dealing with horsepower. You've got to rely on your skill sets.
Yeah, of course, the small bike, to race them at a pretty fast level, it really helps me with like my corner speed. Like on the big bike, there's always like one corner, you can do it so many different ways because you have the power if you want to get off the corner, or you can just use the corner speed to get up there. So it just gives me more like tools to ride around and to race also. Because in like a racing situation, you don't have necessarily the same lines that what you've been practicing in the whole practice and qualifying. So it really helps me to know that I can do like more corner speed style or more point and shoot style to mess around with my lines and the throttle position. So it helped me a lot just to get a more different kind of riding style, pretty much.
Awesome.
Okay, Stuart, let's have a look at little PowerPoint Noel helped put together. And Alex, feel free to jump in. Looks like the knees down on the pavement, the elbow maybe 8 or 10 inches off. How is your riding? And this is you on the a stock 1000 Suzuki Road Racing World M4 X-Star Suzuki. How has your riding evolved and changed in your style? What are some of the things that Jason Pridmore has you adjusting or tweaking or changing on the big bike when you ride?
Of course, now the bike wants to wheelie and spins and does all that kind of stuff coming out of the corners. So I got to use more of my body than I used to. I used just to just sit on the bike and get out of the corner and get it in a tuck as soon as possible. But now I use my body more than I've ever done it. And it's really important to get the weight in the front coming out of the corners. So I use a lot of my legs now. And it's a little different from the SV and the Junior Cup bike. So, yeah.
So we go back to the early days. This is at Jennings. This has got to be on that Milwaukee, I take it.
Yeah, yeah. That's actually the first year I've road race at Jennings. That was 2000.
And here a couple of folks that have helped you in your career. Jason Pridmore, of course, and that looks like one of the autograph sessions in Moto America, sitting beside Roger Hayden.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I've known Jason since I've almost started racing, pretty much, and he's been with me all those years, and he's always been there on my side and helping me every weekend and giving me some tips and everything. We did a lot of one-on-ones together at Chuckwalla. I've been there a lot of times with him in riding, and then I've known Roger for a couple of years now. He's been actually helping me a lot too this year. We've been chatting a little bit on Instagram, and he's really cool to know. And yeah, it's pretty cool to have some nice some fast guys around me and being really nice to me. So I'm really happy.
Yeah, no, I understand this weekend you're heading up to the Ridge, which is a new racetrack with Jason Pridmore. What are you going to try to do up there this weekend?
I'm actually gonna teach with Jason. I've been there last month for the first time, and I'm gonna do it again this weekend, pretty much. Yeah, this weekend, and I'm gonna ride my a J6R 1000 street bike over there, and gonna help with Jason with his teaching.
All that seat time helps. This is some of the early photos running in the KTM RC390 Cup, and
Yep.
leading a big pack of riders there. That was, of course, a single brand class, and then, of course, in 2018, there were Yamahas and Kawasaki's, and the class really blossomed then. As well as you got a chance to go over to Europe at the end of the seasons in 17 and 18, I think, to run some international events over there. What was that like, and how much of a learning experience was that?
It was weird at the beginning because we were only three riders being fast in the U.S., like battling for the race win. But now going overseas, everybody can win the race. So it was weird to see like some 15 rider packs of just everybody battling and doing some really close racing just to try to win the race. So it was a lot different. It's weird to see like those kind of guys on TV, because when I did my World 300 Super Sport race, some of these guys have been in Moto3, and they're all really fast racers. So it's pretty cool to race them in real life, like Ana Carrasco, Maria Herrera, Scott Deroux. It was pretty cool to just getting passed by them over there. So
Yeah,
it was really, really cool.
and I think you were there in 2018 when Ana Carrasco won that FIM World Super Sport 300 class. Here you are again. Well, you're riding with number 16. Any significance to any of the competition number plates that you've used over the years?
When I was little, I've always looked up to Nicky Hayden,
Right.
While I was doing motocross, I've always put on the 69 on my dirt bike, even though I wasn't racing. So on my Motorwaki, I had also the number 69 racing with the CCS and stuff. So I was always looking up to him and seeing him in MotoGP, and it was pretty cool. So unfortunately, he passed away 3 years ago, and that's really sad. And then I put the 690 in the RC Cup because I couldn't put a two-digit number, and then I switched to 23 to get a two-digit number. And my dad used to have the number 23 when he started racing flat track and road race when he was younger. And then this year I switched to 16 because there was someone that had 23 in the 600 class, but then I ended up racing the twins. But yeah, that year was really good last year. I really had fun, and if I ever go to Superbike and I get a national number, I'm probably gonna be number 6. So that's why I chose 16.
Okay. Stuart, let's roll on through. A picture's worth 1,000 words. Alex, you're getting real good at holding a number 1 plate at the end of the season, 2018 in the Junior Cup, and then last year, of course, in the Twins class. You've done some ice racing. You've done some flat track. What has that taught you in terms of riding a big 1,000? Is it just the sense of balance and sliding the motorcycle?
Yeah, I've I'm pretty decent at flat track. I did a couple races. I did twice the bike week, the amateur nationals, and that was pretty cool. But those kids are so fast. They're hauling ass. And I did my first ever AFD American flat track race last year in Daytona, the TT. And unfortunately, I crashed and I didn't do the main event. I crashed in the semis or the heats. So that was good. But then I started ice racing 3 years ago, and I raced the past 2 years, and I actually won a couple of races, and I won also one race in Valcourt against some really fast guys. So that was really fun. So this year I didn't get to racing, to do ice racing, but yeah, it's pretty fun, and I like to do different kind of motorcycle riding stuff instead of just doing road race. I think it helps me a lot with my riding technique, and just to do different stuff just helps me also to learn stuff that I wouldn't think of or something. Yeah.
All right, and there you're leading last couple of shots there. Travis Wyman, who of course outstanding rider, and that's a great shot of you on the Suzuki at Road America. Thank you,
Yeah.
Stuart, and thank you, Noel, for putting that all together. Alex, what's sort of the plan and the thinking now? I know that the Moto America round at Coda got canceled. I think that was announced a few days ago because MotoGP is not going there. Unfortunately, Texas has had a big surge in COVID-19 cases. It looks like the schedule is going to be a little bit fluid. We know Road Atlanta is coming up at the end of July, August 1-2 weekend. What does the rest of the season look like after that?
We're gonna have a big break between. No, actually no. There's gonna be Pittsburgh right after the next round, and it's gonna be pretty much back to back, like in September and October. They all jammed all the races over there, so it's gonna be fun to be almost always on the bike. So it's pretty cool because we used to just sit for like 3 weeks doing nothing. So it's gonna be nice to be able to just ride one weekend after another one. So I'm really excited for that, and it's pretty cool that we get to do a lot of rounds this year with the COVID, because I know there's a lot of different kind of racing stuff that just aren't racing anymore because of the COVID, or just doing a couple rounds and not more. So it's going to be good this year, and I'm really looking forward for all the rounds.
So the last race at Road America, they did allow some fans. I think the first race there, they weren't allowed. What was the whole vibe and atmosphere like that weekend to finally have some fans back watching you guys perform in Moto America?
The first round was really weird, not having fans. It was only all the racers in the paddock and kind of like their families and stuff, and all the teams. So it was weird not having a lot of people in the paddock. There wasn't any signing autograph sessions. There was no except like the team rigs and stuff. There wasn't any like there was anything there. No sponsor, no anything. So it was weird not having people over there. And also Road America, they're known to having a lot of people camping overnight there. They have a lot of camping spots, and people just come out and camp with their RV or tents and stuff. So it was weird going around in the paddock without seeing anybody. So it was a little weird. And the second round, they were allowed to have people there, and a lot of people showed up. It was really cool. A lot of fans, and even with the COVID, with the mask and everything, we could still see them and stuff. So it was really cool. And yeah, it just seemed like a regular Motor America event. So it was pretty cool.
So with the Canadian border closed, what are your travel restrictions right now? I guess you can't come back home during the break in the schedule to enjoy the summer there in Quebec City, or maybe a little trip up to Mont Tremblant. So what's it been like for you?
Um, I don't want to go back to Canada because I don't know if I'm going to be able to cross back to the US for the next round. So until they don't reopen the border for traveling and everybody, I'm not going to go back to Quebec. I wish I would because I have all my friends there. I like to mountain bike over there. My bike's over there, and I like Quebec in the summer. It's really nice. But I'm going to stay in the US until they reopen the border. So now I'm just at Jason Pridmore's house right now in Ventura. So it's been a pretty good couple months now.
Okay, well, say hi to Jason for me, and tell him in a year or two he's going to get an invite to come and be part of our golf tournament that we're going to organize here. Alex, you mentioned Nicky Hayden being one of your racing heroes as a young kid growing up and going to the racetrack with your dad. Were there any Canadian racers or other American racers who you looked up to when you were, just starting out?
Um, Not really. I was young, and I didn't know much about AMA and stuff. Until I got really to start racing. So all the Canadians were like done with racing, like Pascal Picot and Miguel and all those guys, and Steve Crevet. They were still like they were racing Canada or stop racing. So I haven't really grown up watching a Canadian guy in the AMA or Superbike or something. So I wish I would, but there was just nobody that was racing at the time. So
You mentioned Road Atlanta being one of your favorite tracks. You've now raced pretty much on all of the major tracks in the U.S. And I believe the Ridge is brand new this year, as I recall. What are some of the other race tracks that you enjoy racing on, both in the United States and maybe even one or two of the tracks you've raced on over in Europe?
uh, one of my favorite, well, my favorite track is Road America. That's my all-time favorite. I just love it, and going there when the 1000 was even better because there's so much long straightaways that it's just amazing. But then I really liked Miller, Utah Motorsport Park. That was also one of my favorite. Uh, it's really they now we're not gonna go there this year. They changed the schedule from last year, so I would have liked to go there, but we're not gonna go. So it's a little bummer, but it's still fun. And then I love Laguna Seca. It's one of my favorite track. It's pretty cool to have the World Superbike there the last couple of years at the same time as us. So it's really cool to see those guys. I don't think it's gonna happen this year, but it's still pretty cool. And then I love Mont Tremblant. I've been there on my Moriwaki. I've been there on the 600, and I just love the place. It's really nice. Now they're gonna take it down to build some condos or whatever, right? Because they sold the land, and that's a bummer too. Because I really like the place. Now that everybody's went to test at Calabogie this past weekend, I've been there once, and I've done like one session, and then they black flagged me and put me in the pits because I was too young. Because you had to be 14, I think. So I did like a couple laps on it. I don't really remember it. It looks pretty fun, and I think that's one of my favorite tracks if I would have been able to ride there more. But definitely Road America, my favorite.
You mentioned running the AFT singles class at Daytona in the Daytona TT. Didn't go all that well. Any plans or talk with Team Hammer that we might see you at Daytona next year in the 200?
Last year, Team Hammer didn't go to the races, so I don't know. Did they? I forgot, but I don't think that they're gonna go next year. I'm not 100% sure. I have no clue.
Well,
But,
next year will be the 80th, providing we can get the 79th in October. But as far as I know, everything is still full steam ahead for the CCS ASRA and the Daytona 200, October 16 to 18. Going to try to get an update for next week's show from Kevin Elliott with ASRA and CCS to see what the situation is there. We're going to go to Stuart Nodell here. Stuart, flip on that mic. I think we've got one final question or comment for Alex, and then we'll wrap the show up here in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, Pat, thanks. We'll looks like Franz Walker has a question, so we'll let Franz take the floor because I think he's got something for Alex.
Yeah, I think you need to, yep, there he is. Hey, Franz, go ahead.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
Very good.
pretty good.
Good of you to join us again. You're becoming a regular here on Track Announcers Notebook, Franz.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
But Franz, do you golf?
I can confess to not being good at golf at all.
Okay,
So,
okay. None of us are good at it unless we're playing on the PGA Tour. Anyways, your question for Alex.
So Alex, I work for Liqui-Moly, and I know that we've supported you. Jason Belay has been behind you all these years when you're coming up. And so,
Yep.
do you have a message for Jason, and maybe you can kind of express to people what that relationship's been like?
Yeah, we've met Jason from through Pat Gonsalves. He's my mechanic this year. He has a shop in Sherbrooke, and he used to order. Well, he still orders some oil from there, and so we met him through him, and we got a sponsorship from you guys, and yeah, we started to meet more Jason, and he kind of became like a friend with my dad and me, and we started going like on dinners and stuff when we were in Montreal and stuff. So yeah, they helped me a lot in my 2017 season and 2018. So it's really cool of them to being able to help me like that, and it's really good.
Hey, Stuart, do we have any final question or comment?
We just got a comment from Pat Barnes, and he just wanted to ask Alex to thank the Team Hammer people for putting on the school he attended at Daytona.
I'm sorry, sir. I did it cut for some reason.
Did it
Sorry.
catch it? Sorry. Yeah, no, Pat Barnes, who's is a local racer up here in Canada, he wanted you to thank the Team Hammer people for putting on the racing school at Daytona that he attended.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I wasn't there for that school, but for sure I know Chris was there and probably Jake Lewis and those guys were there.
Scott
So,
Russell was there as well, and I think it was only because he took that school on the Friday that Barnes was able to actually qualify for the Daytona 200. So hopefully the border will open, and the 200, the 79th, will happen on the 17th of October, and I think Barnes may go back and take another school in October as well. Well, we've reached 9 o'clock Eastern. Alex Dumas, we want to thank you for coming on board. I'm sure everybody who tuned in, we're going to be posting this on our Track Announcers Notebook YouTube channel. Stuart's going to push it out on social media. I think a lot of Canada and Canadian road racing now, after this last hour, knows a lot more about Alex Dumas. You continue to carry the Quebec and the Canadian flag proudly when you race in Moto America. Keep up the good work, and looking forward to see you on the podium real soon, maybe as early as Road Atlanta in Stock 1000.
thank you very much.
Any final thoughts, Alex?
Well, I had a great time talking with you guys, and it was pretty cool. I don't get to do this often, but it was really nice, and yeah, I'm really excited for the season this year. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, have a great weekend up at the Ridge with Jason Pridmore and that school. And then a couple of weeks after that, you'll be there at Road Atlanta. We'll be watching closely the Stock 1000 practice and qualifying times, and of course, the race. So Stuart, we're going to send it to you, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. Again, I want to thank Alex for participating with us tonight. It's been really great to learn about him. And just as you've said, Pat, I think there's a whole bunch of people rooting for Alex going forward. Not that they weren't already, but he's got a big cheering section pulling for him, and I'm sure he's going to go on to a great career. And it's great to see he's got lots of good mentors. We've got a lot of young guys like the Leclerc brothers and so forth racing. It's great to see, and hopefully these guys keep pushing forward. And we've got some real talent here.
Okay, Stuart, good to once again share the microphone with you. Alex, again, thank you. Say hi to your dad, and we wish Team Hammer and all the best in 2020. So that's going to wrap up this edition of Track Announcers Notebook. Next weekend, we'll have one of our attendees tonight on the show. That is Henry DeGao, who raced at the Macau Grand Prix, organized the North American team for years. We're also going to have one of the North American team members on from many years ago, Michael Taylor, as well as Canada's Dan Kruger, who is scheduled to race at the Macau Grand Prix in November. So we'll have updates and other motorcycle news as well. But next weekend, next Monday night, it'll be all the Macau Grand Prix. Stay safe, be well, have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, on Track Announcers Notebook. Pat Gonsalves for my co-host, Stuart Nodell, and for our special guest tonight, Alex Dumas. Good evening from Toronto.